Welcome to episode 13 of the PopNerdery Podcast, the show that is nerdier than creating a mashup for YouTube of Dream Theater's Pull Me Under and The Yodeler from The Price is Right. I am your host, Brent.
Yodely, yodely, yodely.
That is nerdy.
I'm your host, Brent, and this is a place where you're allowed to have an opinion on anything in pop culture, but you got to have more than just a little bit to say. We'll pick up some of the headlines that have us talking this week, go into our B segment and take a deep dive, and then we will end it on a couple of our upcoming pop culture recommendations. If this is the first time you are joining us, welcome to Pop Nerdery. Again, I'm your host, Brent. With me, as always, is the Brontosaurus to my 80s dinosaur reference book, Toph, and the Behemoth to my Old Testament book of Job, Dave. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm not terrible.
Which is all you can really ask for in this life. This life of misery, as long as you're not terrible. Speaking of things that aren't terrible, Pop Nerdery in your ear holes. You got a couple ways that you can catch up with us in between when you're actively listening to us. The first way is on the Twitters, at PopNerdery, PopNerdery. Commonest things as they happen, inappropriately hashtag subtweet, get the members of the Bay Hive angry on accident. And again, I'd like to really apologize to them. Beyonce is pretty and talented. Please stop, setting my mailbox on fire. You got a couple other ways to listen to the show. First is on iTunes. Fire up the podcast section, go to that search box, type in Pop Nerdery. You'll find us, you'll subscribe to us, you'll review us positively, and you'll leave wonderful comments. I see that. I see that in your future. I'm just saying. Second way,
you have to actually be like waving the stopwatch in front of their eyes too, and this is just a podcast, so I don't. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll try to put some like subliminal,
just like backmask it, something, anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll figure it out in post.
All right. Well, if you're not going to do that, we'd appreciate it if you would. But if you're not going to, you can also head to the website popnerdery.com, archive all the episodes there, discuss things in the comments, fight, love, live, and dance in the talkback section, as well as find all the old episodes that you'll want to love just as much as the new ones.
Topher, should people dance like no one is watching? I've heard that's the best way.
They can dance, or they can also dance and leave their friends behind. Because if their friends don't dance, they're no friends of mine. There's one or the other. Finally, the last way you've got to listen to the show is to write the word "too filthy" for even Deadpool to use in the movie on a 3x5 index card, mail it to Dave Foltz, and it'll come to your house, podcast live for you over your shoulder while you work.
I'll be there. Do they have to say it 3 times into a mirror in the dark?
No, they have to put it on the index card. That's how this works.
On the index card. You're right.
Don't be silly, Dave. God, they're going to mail you an index card.
I'll do it. I'll be there. In our B segment tonight, guys, we are going to talk about underrated or underappreciated sci-fi. So we're really going to get nerdy in the B segment. But first, we're going to talk about this week's headlines. Today, as we're recording, a little bit late for you guys, but we're recording nonetheless, the final trailer for Batman vs. Superman was released, and in it, Ben Affleck's Batman is a total fucking badass.
Yep.
He earned the title already as our best on-screen Batman. I'm just gonna say it.
Whoa.
Oof. I'm reserving judgment.
We had this conversation via text a little bit earlier, but I really hope that this movie is half as good as the trailer was that was released today.
Yeah, there was a lot to like in there. I just honestly left me with more questions. I think you're right. If that portrayal is consistent from the trailer to the movie, I think it will be our best Batman, hands down. But I just, it's what a trailer is supposed to do, right? I have a lot of questions about things.
Exactly, and I think the last trailer gave us all the answers. But this trailer, I think, it gives us questions about the Batman. I think we all know the plot of this movie. I think that from start to finish, this movie is going to have get to know Batman. Then you're going to see Batman kick some people's asses. Then you're going to see Batman fight Superman. And then you're going to see them become super friends. And they're going to meet Wonder Woman and fight a thing. So, that's how this movie is going to go. They showed it to us 2 trailers ago. But the encouraging things from this trailer, you had Jeremy Irons with a really I really liked his Alfred, a really like tactical and involved Alfred, which, you know, Michael Caine was a fine Alfred, but he was never really involved in any of like Batman's cases. You also got to see a scene straight out of Year One at the beginning of the trailer, and then the Batman-Superman fight is almost essentially straight out of Dark Knight Returns. They're stealing individual panels, which Zack Snyder is famous for. But I think that's the most encouraging part of this is even if this movie is a little bit too Zack Snyder-y, we're going to get the kickoff of this version of Batman, which I'm already, you know, hook, line, and sinker, you know, down for.
So you guys are the aficionados. I just have to ask, because my vantage point of Alfred has been the Nolan trilogy,
right?
The animated series on the WB in the early 90s, and then the Tim Burton films. We're just going to throw out the Joel Schumacher
There's
film,
nothing in
let's
the
be
middle.
honest.
You've named all of them.
Yes. I always saw Alfred as fatherly, elderly, refined, but very intelligent, knows everything on the back, and never saw him getting down and dirty. Is that actually something that occurs in the comics from time to time?
And I would say that typically we're used to seeing an older Alfred, but an Alfred that is very much, you know, Batman's partner in crime. Especially if you're reading any of the newer stuff that's coming out by DC Comics now. Alfred is very, very involved. And you generally see him like on the other side of the earpiece. And if Ben Affleck says Penny One, I'm gonna fucking flip out because that's Alfred's code name. Brent is Penny One. But if we see this Batman for 2.5 hours of this movie, and it means that we get a Ben Affleck directed and starring version in which they introduce Nightwing and Tim Drake and Red Hood, that's all I could possibly ask for from this. I am still nervous about what this universe is going to look like, you know, how it's going to feel, if it's going to feel as dark and grimy as, you know, Suicide Squad looks, but I just want to GIF every single frame that Ben Affleck's Batman is in this trailer because it looks really great.
Just always.
Yeah. Speaking of trailers, during the Super Bowl on Sunday, we got to see pretty good looks at a lot of like nerd favorite properties. We got to see a new trailer for X-Men Apocalypse, which looked so-so, about the same as the rest of the trailers, I think. The big deal was we saw Olivia Munn's Psylocke in live action.
Sorry, live action. We started cutting apart the fucking universe. It was awesome.
with a psychic sword, which is about. I mean, that's about as badass as a sentence as I think I'm going to say tonight. She had a psychic sword. So I liked that one. I liked that you got to see Apocalypse do the size shifting or whatever it was that he did. You got to see a little bit more, you know, Gene and Scott. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. The one that we saw for the first time that I don't think we've seen at all before was this new Jason Bourne movie in which Matty Damon looks like a badass. I got head shakes from Topher.
I just don't understand why we need another one of these. I like the first one and even the second one well enough, but I don't know. I'm exhausted of this universe. It's the same thing with like after Taken. Like it was a novel idea that they just kept wringing money out of.
Yeah, I do agree with that. The one thing I will say is that everything that I like about the new James Bond movies, about the Daniel Craig led James Bond movies, are all Bourne Identity. Like almost everything.
It's very similar.
Yeah, are straight lifted from that first Bourne movie. So I love Matt Damon, and I'll let him do whatever he wants. But he
all over my face. What? So I didn't tag up on this before. I thought you might let it breathe for a second. If Olivia Munn's Psylocke works in Age of Apocalypse, I am 100% on board with her and Deadpool having some sort of role in the new X-Force movie.
Yes.
And Ryan Reynolds is already kind of talking that way, and it seems like the studio is very happy with where that's going. So just my 2 cents. If Psylocke works,
please
give me Olivia Munn in X-Force.
Yeah,
And-
the most
No, Dave, I want this because I don't know if you guys saw the Instagram video she put up of her like sword training,
yeah.
and the camera
Yes.
pans over. It's Ryan Reynolds. She's got her training sword, and she's like fucking hot shit whipping it around, and she looks like a total badass. And
Yep.
the camera pans over to see Ryan Reynolds holding a balloon sword, and he just boops her on the nose.
Yep.
Like, I want a buddy comedy. Give me this movie right now.
Exactly. And she's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
So like I
Yeah,
genuinely feel like
She carried
if
it.
they can make that dynamic work, like
Please.
she can totally hold her own right next to Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah. So one of the more recent versions of X-Force or X-Factor, X-Force, was the Wolverine-led like assassin squad. This is from 5-6 years ago. But the lineup was Wolverine, Deadpool, Psylocke, Cable, and there was one other person that I'm forgetting.
Colossus or Warpath or
Yeah. It would be great. I think it was
Cannonball.
Warpath. But could you imagine if you had a Bruce Campbell Cable, an Olivia Munn Psylocke, a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, whoever you want to cast as the new Wolverine,
I
and
want to cast a new Wolverine.
right.
I don't really either, but we can only pump steroids into Hugh Jackman for so long before he
That's
just
not true. We can try
He-
more.
He just had treatment on some skin cancer.
Yeah.
So I think we can, like, as much as you want Wolverine to just last forever because he's Wolverine.
I'll take a
Jackman
CGI
is
Hugh
Wolverine.
Jackman. Like I don't even need him to show up. Like give me a CGI Jackman then.
Sure.
we can
Sure.
fix him. We have the technology. And then Warpath, just whoever the hell you want, is the straight man.
You know who would be awesome as Warpath? I can't think of the actor's name, but the guy from The Martian.
I don't
Matt
know who
Damon.
you're referencing.
No.
I was
No,
going to
no.
say you could take Dave Bautista from. He was Drax, and he was a good straight man as Drax. Just make him Warpath.
Yeah, nope. I'm talking about, if we're going the comedy angle, Michael Pena.
Yeah.
As
Warpath. I
As
love
Warpath.
Michael Pena. I love Michael Pena in the Super Bowl commercial with Amy Schumer and
Yeah.
Seth Rogen, where he's like, guys, be quiet. Seth and Amy are talking about our country.
Yeah, yep.
I love him.
Yep.
He's hilarious. All right, moving on. I know, Brent, you've been really looking forward to the trailers for Jungle Book.
Yeah.
And we got a teaser during the Super Bowl and a full trailer the next day, and I think it looks pretty damn good.
I think it looks amazing. Toph, can you explain the sounds that you just made?
That was mostly excitement rising from my diaphragm and general pants region about how much I want this Jungle Book movie.
Yeah,
Because,
it
yeah.
looks incredible. I really like the cast. I am in awe of the visuals that I'm seeing so far.
The cast has gotten a lot of shit online, which really kind of surprises me.
It is
really?
it's one of the best voice casts that I could imagine this movie.
The
having.
walk-in as King Louis
Yeah.
has taken a lot of shit, and I was like,
That one-
that's going to be funny. I'm
Yeah.
into that. Like,
Yeah,
the same reason I think Bill Murray is really good at Baloo. Like,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it's that personality.
totally. And maybe we will get, maybe when it's 15 minutes of on-screen Christopher Walken, it might be a tough pill to swallow, but I also know about it going in,
Yeah.
and I think I can expect exactly what
Well, it sets the expectation, right?
we're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, King Louis is looking for fire, man cub. We're here to get the fire. I'm an orangutan. Also, I'm large.
Yeah, I trust Favreau, right? I just trust
Right.
that he won't allow it to go off the rails, because Iron Man was a thing that really could have gone off the rails. You have one robot fighting a bigger robot, and a guy who has like a little ear hole deal guy, but he made that work. Iron Man is almost a perfect movie. It is-
Cowboys and Aliens could have gone off the rails, but
sorry.
But yeah, no,
So we recovered
I'm
from that, is
totally
what we're
there,
too. I guess you're right. I blew Favreau a little bit too much without thinking about it until
what I'm curious to see, and only time will tell, is if the other Jungle Book film has takes any sort of different angle with the marketing or whatever, because it's mocap performance, not Disney.
Yeah.
Andy Serkis,
I mean,
Cumberbatch, great cat. Like, it's going to be difficult, I think, for Warner Brothers to say, no, guys, we did one too, and it's just as good, and everybody should see it. So
I mean, I would be quivering in my little boots, especially because, like, the first one is usually the one where people go, oh, that's the real one. The other one's a knockoff. Like, when Armageddon came out, they were like, oh, that's the Comet movie. And then Deep Impact came out, and they're like, oh, well, that's the other one.
That's the other Comet.
The other Comet or asteroid movie.
Since the one is Disney, and we already know based off Baloo whistling and things like that, they're going to harken back. So it's there may be different takes from that standpoint, where one's going for a lot of nostalgia plus, and maybe the circus film is going more for adherence to the book, because
that's a big
Disney
from
is
Disney.
way off.
The book is I think that might be the way they win, is they give us honestly like two separate Jungle Book movies, which would be cool.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys care about the nostalgia as much as I do, but I'm going to go to the one where Bill Murray sings Bare Necessities. That's the one I'm going to.
Go to it. That's my fucking ringtone as soon as that thing comes out. Like, I just need that in my life 100% more than I have it right now.
All right.
That's one of my all-time favorite Disney films right there. So
absolutely.
So yeah.
Gimme.
To stay in the world of Disney, we got one more trailer for Captain America Civil War, which I have to imagine is going to be the last one, because Civil War comes out in May, yes? Yeah, in May. I can't imagine we're going to get even more of this movie. It looked awesome, and they did the full-on, side by side of the two teams. And just I'm a Cap guy, right? I'm a Team Cap all the way guy. But when you look at his team against Iron Man's team,
it's not fair.
It's not fair, because
Iron Man wipes the floor with them.
Yeah. Well, they have vision, so there's that.
So, I mean, honestly, like, that side is Nerf OP straight from hell. Like, it's over at that point.
And it's almost like Cap is missing a Thor. Like at the last second they wrote in Ant-Man because Chris Hemsworth said I was busy.
Yeah, I was doing Ghostbusters or whatever.
Yeah, right. So that I know that it's titled Captain America Civil War.
Right.
So we're gonna see Captain America do some badass stuff, but I'm just saying, if you're having those two teams fight each other, Cap needs some more firepower. Is all I'm saying.
Agreed. And based off the story that we think we know in the books, maybe it does make sense that his side's not as strong.
Yeah, they'll just have to be scrappy.
Yeah,
scrappy.
Yeah.
All right, and lastly. We're not going to talk too long about this, but there was another trailer for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Michael Bay Turtles. And the only reason I bring it up at all is because we saw Krang.
Krang!
And he looked exactly like he looked in the cartoon.
Yep.
Like the guy who he lives inside of, his little mech suit guy, looked exactly the same. And it was just like a little pink brain ball inside of it, like a
little weird tentacle arms.
It was crazy. Again, when you watch that trailer, you see shot for shot like remakes of shots that were in Transformers trailers. Mm-hmm. So like he's not doing anything new here, but you gotta at least give him a little bit of credit that we're gonna get a Bebop, a Rocksteady, and a Krang.
And they all look good. I mean, I had zero interest, and now I at least will get this on DVD. Like this will be a run box for me, just because I want to see those.
I'll at least watch it.
I will admit that I wish, and I did not see the first one, but I wish it was more cartoonish.
Yeah.
Like, in a weird way, the old school, like, early 90s versions of the live-action films.
The Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah.
Yeah, they totally owned the fact that they were live-action versions of cartoons, whereas Bebop and Rocksteady are almost trying too hard, and that's exactly how I felt when I saw Crane. So,
but I can almost foresee exactly what's going to happen in this movie. Is Bebop and Rocksteady are going to make really crass, probably sexist, potentially racist jokes in this movie because I've seen the Transformers movies and I know how this goes.
Because I know who Michael Bay is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He's just going to go and shoot
that.
for the lowest common denominator of jokes, and that's
Oh,
the hard
man.
part. All right, moving on from trailers. It was announced this week, and I don't know if this interests you guys or not. I'm sure that you guys maybe have read this, but Harry Potter is going to get an 8th book, which takes place roughly 30 years after the end of Harry Potter and the Deathly
I think
Hallows.
19.
Years? Okay.
If I may
so
push
roughly,
my glasses back up in my face, I believe it is approximately 19 years after the conclusion of the Deathly Hallows.
so roughly 20, like almost
roughly
exactly.
30.
Yeah.
I mean, roughly.
We round to the closest by 11s.
So I read all the Harry Potter books. It takes I'm guessing Toph, you read all the Harry Potter books. Brent, yes.
I have, yeah.
Yes. So
some of the largest and most complicated books I've ever actually finished.
So this book is going to be released on July 31st, which, according to the website I am reading this from, is coincidentally also Harry Potter's birthday.
Yes.
And also July 31st is the day after the play is debuting in London.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that this will differ, and J.K. Rowling has already confirmed, this won't be a novelization of the play. It'll just be a straight release, a book release of the script of the play.
And it's going to be credited as J.K. Rowling and team.
Yes.
So she didn't actually write it. Like, I'm sure she had a lot of input on it, and it's her characters and universe and everything, but this, a lot of people, all the headlines I saw were, new Harry Potter book coming out.
Right.
It's like, no. I mean,
I'm sure that she plotted it. There's no way that she didn't plot it and didn't say this is what needs to happen in the story.
No.
But I also don't think that she is an accomplished stage writer, screenwriter for a stage. What the hell do you call the people who do that?
A playwright is the word.
Playwright. God damn it. That's the word I was looking for. I don't think she's an accomplished playwright, and she's not going to put this out there unless it's polished. So, of course, she's not going to write it on her own.
Gimme.
I was kind of hoping for her to put out a novelization, like a version of it in which she writes it as she wrote the others. But
it really did seem when the news came out that it was a change of course, that it was just going to be a play, No, we decided we'll just make it a book. And then
I think what happened is Scholastic, or whoever her publisher was, said, "Hey, we would like to make $1 billion."
You already made this play. Can we just go ahead and make more money off of this?
Can we take the Word doc?
Mm-hmm.
Can we take the Word doc that you have and turn it into a book and sell it for $1 billion, please? Yeah. So that's us being cynical, but I am actually excited to see this.
Cynical, and yet I will still absolutely buy it the first day it's out.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the description maybe leads me to believe that it's going to be like Harry Potter in the midlife crisis, because he's like
Potter's not getting laid enough.
Yeah, he's
really busy with his 3 kids, and his job at the Ministry of Magic is really getting to him. Yeah.
Harry Potter sadly jerks off in the shower.
Yeah, we'll see.
and blasts 80s stadium rock while he bench presses in his garage.
I mean, based on Daniel Radcliffe's post-Potter career, I mean, he would be willing to get nude on stage.
Yeah.
All right. 2 things real quick. Flash and Supergirl are set to cross over. This is going to happen at the end of this season. It's already been kind of announced that the way that they're working it into the story is that it's like a different planet on the multiverse, so that way, Supergirl and Flash and Legends of Tomorrow are all still free to do all the things they want to do, but they get to have this crossover. Honestly, I read a very compelling article today about how it can't possibly be for the ratings, because The Flash is CW's highest rated show, and Supergirl is a top 5 show on the most watched network on television. So it must just be that they really want to cross these things over. And
I think they just want to play in that universe.
Yeah, and I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the creators of Supergirl have really, started a campaign specifically just to get me to watch their show.
They really have.
I feel like the only reason they're doing this crossover is because they know eventually I will have to watch it.
They heard this podcast and they said, well, Toph seems really down on Supergirl.
Like some Flash, and he's just really questioning the Supergirl.
Yeah, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a badass reveal of Martian Manhunter. Then we're going to do a full episode of Martian Manhunter's origin. And you know what? Strike 3 is we're going to cross over with the Flash, and Toph will have to watch it.
He's going to eat the hook, we're going to set the hook, and we're going to reel him in. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, I've got a Supergirl poster on the ceiling of my bedroom.
There we go.
And then we'll fillet him, and we'll do a live podcast.
Yeah, the creators.
Delicious.
Cannibalism won't get us new listeners? Okay, strike that from the record.
Right. Our last superhero story of the week is it's pretty much just a way for me to promote that we're going to do our Deadpool review episode next week. Yay! But there was some more details about Ryan Reynolds, who is essentially just turning into a folk hero on the internet at this point. Two things.
Love that guy.
One, it came out this week. He was talking at a press conference of some kind or a junket for the movie, and they asked him about the leaked test footage that came out. If you guys remember, about 2 years ago, there was this leaked test footage that got everybody on the internet excited about this. They did like letter writing campaigns, and it blew up on Twitter, and it essentially convinced Fox to make this movie. And Ryan Reynolds was asked about it, and he said, yeah, there's like a 70% chance that I didn't leak it, which essentially means he
leaked it.
So badly wanted to get this movie made that he stole test footage and somehow through somebody put it online because he wanted to get the movie made so bad. That's awesome.
Yeah,
go ahead.
He was on, I think it was Jimmy Fallon. And he talked about there were 4 people that had access to that, and he was one of them. So he was like, between the 4 of us, we all just kind of shook our heads and didn't admit to each other which one did it, but we all knew it was one of the 4 of us.
25% chance it was one of us.
Yeah, and that kind of shows you. I don't know if he was really passionate about the character before he did Origins Wolverine, or if he got passionate about it while he was shooting it?
No, he wanted to take that role. He wanted that role no matter what, because he wanted
to apologize to us
movie to happen.
Yeah. Because it was so shit in that movie?
Right, he hates it too. He said that he fell in love with the Deadpool character and then at one point was reading a comic and Deadpool was asked what he looked like under the mask. And he said, it's somewhere between a mix of Ryan Reynolds and a Shar-Pei. and Ryan Reynolds was hooked. He just thought that was the greatest line ever. And he tried forever to make a Deadpool movie happen and may have leaked some test footage just to make sure that it did.
God bless him.
Yeah, he also said this week that he worked to get this movie made for 11 years. So there was no way that he wasn't going to take the suit home. On the last day of shooting, costumes came up to him to get the Deadpool suit, and he said, yeah, go ahead and try and take it off me, and just walked away. So he has the Deadpool suit.
Of course he does.
Yeah, you saw the Halloween thing, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. So well, moving on from superheroes, the only thing that we're going to talk about this week that's not superheroes, apparently, is that this morning the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory,
it's LIGO,
announced that we have our first direct detection of gravitational waves. And the reason I said that so stilted is because I don't really necessarily understand it. But it blew up in the scientific community, and the science nerds on Twitter went insane when this was announced today.
It's okay that you're not a scienceologist, Dave.
So as the member of this podcast with a bachelor in science, which is probably the funniest thing that ever happened to the history of any, I appreciate everyone's Bachelor of Science degree.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, like I make everybody else's Bachelor of Science degree worse by the fact that I hold a Bachelor of Science.
I have a Bachelor of Science. Journalism
I have
is
a
Bachelor
Bachelor of Science.
Oh, God. Well, then, all right, so we all discredit science.
Exactly.
I don't have a Master of Science.
None of us are scientists in any way.
Okay, good. Well,
I'm the son of a scientist.
That was in way of saying that I have a, in my daily job as a senior strategist for a marketing company, I don't bump up a lot against gravitational physics and relativity, but the reason this is really exciting is because Einstein basically postulated this like 60 years ago, and we've all been too young to figure it out. Yeah. So
that is calling your shot. Like, I mean, it's the same thing as Copernicus saying that, we rotated around the sun when we couldn't successfully, sail across a lake. And he's like, no, let me explain to you how the universe model works. Yeah. So it basically just means that gravity, in the same way that audio waves or light waves have waves to them. There's a physical component.
Shockwave.
Exactly, in that same way. And what this is really exciting, aside from just the fact that it's kind of amazing that you look at Einstein who calls a shot, and it takes us until 2016 to finally go, oh, well, this guy had, tools that were basically like a screwdriver, a hammer, and a ruler, and he figured this out, and we've just now confirmed it. That makes you feel good about ourselves. But it basically completes the theory of relativity, and that we can almost basically prove it now. And it used to just be a conceptual thing, and now it's like, oh, well, this is kind of the last component that we couldn't physically measure.
That's absolutely the big takeaway for scientists, is that they can now, since they've measured it once, measure it again and again and again and again and again, and make some additional discoveries, because they're going to start being able to predict where they'll find it, what it'll look like, etc. And one of the ways that I saw it described in an article was, when you look at the universe, when you look in space, most people were drawn to the light for eons. And they said, what are those light pricks? Oh, they're stars. Let's learn about those. And then, over time they realized there was a lot of dark space that actually mattered as well. And that's a big thing here, is that they can now find more of what they can't see. And so that will probably lead to additional discoveries, or allowing them to better categorize more of the stuff they can't see.
Well, and they think that they were saying that these emanate from likely black holes and from the actual, or the edges of black holes. And
the collision of black holes.
And the start of time, which is bad news for idiots, because we're going to be able to really specifically date a large chunk of the universe shortly, and it's not going to be like 200 years. So, sorry, idiots.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for me is, well, it's like a double-edged sword. I'm excited to see what sort of discoveries this brings, but I'm also jealous that I am going to live like a limited amount of time, and the things that people are postulating and theorizing now may not be proven until long, long, long after I'm dead.
This is a pretty cool one, though, in terms of, like, the giant things about our Earth or our universe that we truly can't necessarily comprehend. Like, we just proved a big chunk of one.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like, the Earth is round. Well, we don't have the technology to prove that, and then a certain amount of time passes and we prove it.
Right.
You rotate, like, some of these big things that they couldn't, like, people were saying, I'm pretty sure this is how this works, but couldn't prove. That's what Einstein did, and we got to be, like, this is going to be taught as fact from here on out, and we were there on the day that this became a fact, which is actually pretty awesome.
Speaking of, don't tell B.O.B. that the Earth is round.
I feel so bad for him. Like, he just did that thing, like, last month, and he really staked his reputation, and then Einstein fucks him from, like, 6 years in the past. That's brutal.
Yeah, I believe the date was 1915 that Einstein actually first introduced the theory of relativity. So you think about being 100 years. Someone can fact check me on that, but think about being 100 years before your time. That's pretty darn incredible, and that's the type of stuff Isaac Newton was doing too when he created calculus as like a 19-year-old, just because he had some trouble figuring out things.
I can't prove any of this, but I'm pretty sure this is how this works. So I'm going to call my shot in the dark here, and then 2 centuries later we go, oh, holy shit, that was incredible.
It was incredible. Yeah. Very incredible. So from science to science fiction, we're going to move on to our B segment.
Oh, such a segment.
We will be right back.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Go to popnerdery.com/audible and sign up for a free trial to support the show and get hours of entertainment.
So by entertainment, do you mean like the acid reflux that I experience sometimes when I have a few too many nachos and sodies?
I want you to think about that and reverse it 180 degrees, and yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. With the free Audible trial, you're going to get 2 free audiobooks. So right there, those are words for your ears. After the trial ends, you get an audiobook a month for $14.95. You get 30% off any additional audiobook that you want. So when you're just craving them audiobooks and want to keep shoving them into your ears, this is the way you do it. Cancel at any time, finish the subscription, and the best part, you get to keep the books even if you cancel. Take that, Netflix.
Keep the books? Like I keep my Maylocks on the shelf? Pop Nerdery brought to you by Maylocks. Oh, no, sorry, wrong ad.
Audible. Go to popnerdy.com/audible to sign up for your free trial. Then tell your friends so that they can have audiobooks. Welcome back to the PopNerdery Podcast. Here in the B segment, like an insidious poke in the eye, we're going to slowly spread pain throughout your skull. What? We probably won't do that. Instead, what we're going to do is slowly delve into a topic and get more than just a little bit to say about it. In this case, we wanted to highlight some of our favorite sci-fi series that we just felt like didn't get enough love. And I think that we obviously want to make the recommendation these are things we like. But more than that, we kind of want to take a look at why these weren't either widely accepted, more popular, or just simply didn't get the light shown upon them that we thought they deserved. So, Brett, I want to start with you. Do you have a series that you feel like is just criminally underrated?
A series?
Or a movie or a book, I should say.
Yeah, a property of some sort. Okay, so I've already made this recommendation once, but it is a film called Under the Skin, and it stars Scarlett Johansson, and it's her, and early in the movie you don't know what her deal is, but you very quickly realize that she is not someone that has human interests at heart.
Okay.
And by the end of the movie, you find out, dicey things about her and her motives and all that. And so it's very much a sci-fi property. I'm sure that this film is only underrated and only off the radar because it had almost no marketing done for it when it came out. So that's an easy example.
Film? Obviously, this wasn't coming from one of the big studios, right?
Relatively indie, but it was directed by Jonathan Glazer.
Oh. Okay.
So, we've seen plenty of Jonathan Glazer stuff over the years, although most of his stuff, I believe, is more music videos and commercials and things like that. So, let me see, the production company, it was more indie, BFI and Film 4. So that's the other thing, is maybe it's because I'm an American and it was probably more produced for a UK audience. But I think it's a totally underrated film and brings up some interesting themes and metaphors. So.
I think another reason why it might have gotten kind of overlooked was because it came out the same year as Lucy, and that was another Scarlett Johansson starring big marketing push movie. So I think it might have just been overshadowed by that. A lot of times these movies live or die on how much time the star has to go to talk shows and market them and speak about them, and that was a movie with a much bigger marketing budget than Under the Skin.
That's a great point, but it is an interesting movie to me just in general. Once you see the film and you learn a little bit more, a lot of the people that appear in the film aren't even actors, and they didn't realize that they were being filmed for a movie until well after they were already in a scene and things were going on and things were being said to them and stuff. So it's just a really fascinating film, A, and I think it's just an eerie, strange, cool IP as far as sci-fi is concerned.
Yeah, I have another one I'm just going to kind of tag up real quick because it was also a UK film that kind of went under the radar for a lot of people here. It was certainly very well received critically, and a lot of people are looking back at it now. But Attack the Block, which was John Boyega's first film, was a fantastic sci-fi movie.
It was fun.
And it was very, very well done, and it was very British. It was very, very British. Like it felt like a really high-budget episode of Black Mirror. Is kind of what it felt like. And John Boyega is really good in it, obviously. But you said, hey, this one was. It kind of flew under my radar because it was for a UK audience, and I feel like Attack the Block had the same thing where there was some word of mouth online for it, but it certainly I don't even believe it was released in theaters in the States.
I don't think so. That was one I came to through a recommendation similar to this, and it was like, I don't even know what this is. Never even heard of this, nothing else, and I saw it, and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, why is this not being shown in every multiplex around here? Like,
exactly.
How did we all miss this?
It's funny that you actually brought up one of my next ones there, Dave, but I'll let Toph maybe try to come up with his right off the top of his dome as far as what you would want to immediately start talking about.
One of mine
and why you didn't think it worked.
Also why it was bad. Tell me the thing you loved that no one else liked, and why no one else liked it.
Right.
Another one that we've touched on briefly is Farscape in the past. It was a Henson property that, I guess not maybe surprisingly, a lot of the things that Henson does that aren't Muppets don't go over super well, and they kind of end up as cult classics. If you think about, like, I think The Dark Crystal is one that could fit into this category really nicely. It has some very strange, I guess it's more fantasy than sci-fi, I would say, but, that had a bunch of money behind it, Henson Company, similar to Farscape, and just never really found an audience, partially because I would say my estimation of why I think that it didn't do very well, and I think it probably fits for both The Dark Crystal and Farscape, is simply that these are Henson's chance to get weird, as opposed to a lot of the mainstream stuff that he does with the Muppets, and, that's great too. But this is a chance to let's make some really weird, fucked up looking puppets. Let's put them into a really strange universe. Like, it's almost like they need to get it all out of their system and then go back and do the other stuff.
Yeah. Can you actually sell me on it? Because it is one that was only on my radar because my father watched it and I saw imagery from it. But it was one of those that I think I avoided for the exact reason that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear your sales pitch on it as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of a strange amalgamation of Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, and Star Trek, I guess would be a way I could sell it on it. It's basically about a crew of folks who are thrown together and are escaping from an authoritative force in a biomechanical ship.
Oh, okay. So that's the selling point. It's a biomechanical ship, eh?
Yeah. Right, and it's very much like a weird, in the same way that Firefly is kind of a bunch of strange people end up on a ship together and they have to do stuff kind of together, but they're all very opposite personalities. This is a similar thing where you've got like the human guy who gets tossed back, and you've got a kind of like a green owl of sorts. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's weird.
The logline on IMDb does a really nice job. It just says, thrown into a distant part of the universe, an Earth astronaut finds himself part of a fugitive alien starship crew. Mm-hmm. That's a great sales pitch, I think.
That summed it up better than, it's all, well-meaning. It was basically, truly, the more I think about it, it's Firefly, but with puppets.
Yeah. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Firefly for a second. Firefly is certainly not underrated anymore, but it definitely failed to latch into the mainstream. And
didn't have an audience while it was live.
Yeah, and
after that's a lot of a mystery. I mean, when Fox shows the episodes out of order.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Thanks, Fox.
Yeah, that is.
You ruined another show.
Yeah, and I don't know if they weren't confident in it. I have never really read into why they did it that way, especially after Joss Whedon had been so successful with Buffy.
I think that's what it was, is that there is a certain, I mean, it's a hard sell, right? Like, you look at a lot of the stuff that, in our world is reviewed very positively. You think of, like, Star Trek, Battlestar, all of that stuff. That's a hard sell outside of our area, right? Just in the same way, like, I'm trying to sell you a Farscape, like, well, the ship's alive and he's a human, he's thrown back and there's a green owl and they're all fucking weird. Like, that's a tough sell to be like, following Monday Night Football is, whatever.
And that's why I think some of those properties live better right now on a Netflix or whatever else, because it's like, we don't even have to worry about trying to capture the audience that might stick around after the news, right?
Sure.
They can just say, if you like this, you're gonna like this, and people will find them. So
when you mentioned biomechanical ship, the first thing I thought of, and I don't know if you guys saw this when you were kids, but I thought of Disney's Flight of the Navigator.
Oh yeah.
You remember that when you were kids?
Oh,
had Pee Wee Herman was the voice of the ship, I think.
Really?
I think it was Paul. I'm pretty sure it was Paul Rubens. Yeah.
I thought it was.
I remember my dad showing me that one when I was really young.
And I think this is also something that's maybe interesting, is that, like, you're allowed to get away with that kind of shit in kid stuff, and it's not weird. And at some point, it's just like, that bar to entry. I don't know if it's just because, like, you watch stuff as a kid and then you stop, like, you quote unquote grow up, and, like, if it's not fostered in you, then it's kind of hard to find something else you're into again.
Right.
But some of the stuff is far better than the shit you're exposed to as a kid, and going, look, I really like Flight of the Navigator.
Right.
It's not good. It's not something that's really successful. But we're over here going like, I remember that and it was so great. And it was like, have you watched Firefly? And like, what is that, nerd shit? Okay.
Right.
I'm confused. How did we get here?
And
so one of the next things I wanted to look at was The Man in the High Castle, which has something that Brent just touched on, new life on Amazon, as a show that has been, completely created by them. Set up online streaming. They're doing the now popular thing to release the whole season so you can binge it. However, this is a Philip K. Dick book that's, I'm probably going to botch the release date off the top of my head, but 50 years old, 60 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood, and dealt with a subject matter that, at least in the movie industry, people love to write about, which is Nazis, because that is a very easy, compelling villain to go for. And for the longest time, no one had even heard of this book. And I find it kind of fascinating that a very popular sci-fi action author had a book about Nazis and fighting Nazis that everyone just kind of like had a weird blind spot to.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Man in the High Castle is that I don't think they did a great enough job of selling it, because until like 2 weeks ago, I didn't know the full premise. I didn't know how deeply that it was rooted in sci-fi, because it legitimately looks so good and it's so polished that I just thought it was a period piece.
Yeah. They do a great job of kind of extrapolating upon, like, if the Nazis had won the war and continued funding things like V-2 rockets and some of the tech they were working on, like, what would have been the logical outcomes of those, and they become a part of that universe.
Yeah, and I think one of my recommendations that we kind of stumbled into here is it's a comic series from Image. It's called The Manhattan Projects, and it takes a similar look at that period in time. So the premise of this book is that the Manhattan Projects were, used to design, the first atomic bombs, but also used to do all of this weird, crazy sci-fi shit. And you have actual historical
every sci-fi like trope of they overindulged in some Tesla technology.
They went too far, dug too brutally, too deep.
Yeah. It was actually happening, but it just didn't turn into anything. So go ahead.
And so they have like actual historical scientific figures like Albert Einstein and Richard Feynman and pretty much every famous scientist from that time period, right around World War II and before. And they have them all working on these crazy interdimensional bridges, and they're sending Russian space dogs into space, and then that dog is coming back and he can speak English and shoot a machine gun, and they
always come in handy, let's be honest.
Exactly, and they have German guys who get bombed in the war come back with crazy mech suits, and it is it's written by Jonathan Hickman, who just recently finished up his run on all of the Marvel event books. So he wrote, we've talked about Infinity and Secret Wars here. He's done fantastic runs on Fantastic Four and a couple of other books over at Marvel. But he writes this one to create her own project over at Image, and it gets really crazy at times to where you really don't know how it's going to go or where it's going to end or if it is ever going to end or if there's ever going to be a point. But the art is so good. It's by a guy named Nick Pitara, and it's fun to see these real-life scientists who are so rooted in the logical and the rational just given, Albert Einstein is a whiskey-swilling, gun-toting, alien-clubbing badass in the
Sign me up.
And that is you really can't do much better than make Albert Einstein into a
action hero.
Action hero.
Yeah. That definitely sounds right up my alley, and it's one that we already brought up here a little bit, but the types of things that explore something that could possibly be feasible are always going to carry a little bit more weight with me, or when they're at least more tangible for me. And one that hit home really well with me lately is the Black Mirror series.
Yes.
And that is coming back to Netflix, which has me very excited. Now, I only say underrated because between the three of us, I think we are 3 of the 4 people that I know personally talking about Black Mirror. Yeah. Shout out again, friend of the show, Keith, who turned us on to Black Mirror, I think. Was it on any of our radars before he brought it up?
Not really.
No, absolutely.
And it is such an excellent show because it takes some goofy thing about society or some piece of technology and over-extrapolates it into a very near future and makes you not only think about things but feel legit feels about, how you're reacting or interacting with technology or with other humans. And that's definitely an exciting thing. And that's probably one of the biggest draws for me about sci-fi in general is when it makes you think about, how humans interact with other humans and how that has changed, will be changing, etc. And so I have something that I think directly inspired Black Mirror, but I'll save it. Toph, you want to say words?
I wanted to double up on that. That goes directly into one of the things that I think is it's confusing to me why it isn't bigger, talking about, looking at the interaction between humans and our environment. Neil Stephenson, who, a friend of the show, Neil Stephenson.
Love that man now.
We talk about him enough that I feel
friend
like
of the show, Barack Obama.
Yeah, yes.
If you say it is true.
Has written several books that really focus specifically on that. And Snow Crash is one of the books that's cited about how, this is kind of the idea, like, if the Internet of Things expanded and got bigger and bigger and bigger, this would be, kind of the way, how would we interact with that and each other and everything else in that. And the tech in it is a little goofy. It's probably a little too far. But the fascinating part of his writing is exactly that, like that interplay between people in a world that's familiar but slightly foreign. And I'm with you. I think you hit it on the head there. Like, that's what's compelling about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and based on your recommendation of him a couple weeks ago, I have been listening to, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through, 70s, which I'm listening to on Audible, which is awesome.
Shout out to Audible.
Shout out to Audible. The voice acting is very, very good, and it's pretty much the only way that I can get through an 880-page sci-fi book. I looked it up today. It's 880 pages. But I think it does a thing that Brent brought up, is that it starts from a place of where we are right now, and it extrapolates slowly, and it takes me there. So the third part of this book is the most far-fetched, but it's believable to me because he built it up for 600 pages before I got there.
It goes from a place that I accept this, that would be crazy, but I get this, and it built up on it in a logical way. Yeah.
Right, and the way that you described it a couple of weeks ago when you recommended it was on the first page, the moon explodes.
The first sentence.
In the first sentence, the moon explodes, and it goes from there, and it talks about what we would do as a society and what we would do as a planet trying to ensure that our species survives. And I really like it when it starts at an idea and it takes that idea and it builds and builds and builds and builds. And that's the way that sci-fi is the most realistic to me.
Little bit of go ahead, Toph. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna, and that's kind of, I think that the crux of all this stuff and what we're talking about here is when you have something that really is built upon something that you can understand, and you're following it and it feels real, and you're looking at it and you're like, this is great sci-fi, and then no one else is excited about that thing.
Yeah.
It's so baffling to you.
Well, it is tough, and I could see why maybe Neil Stephenson's not more popular, because it took me to get to the Seven Eves of the title. It took me 600 pages to get there.
Oh yeah,
and that's a huge time investment, and a lot of times, in order to get the full weight of the sci-fi that we like, you have to devote a lot of time and energy to it in order to live in that world, and that's just kind of what the genre is all about. Is that you have to be patient through the world building, because otherwise you don't get the full effect.
Great point, and that's every IP that's truly considered science fiction, that is the make or break moment, right? Is how long does it get good enough before they've actually had to do much world building, or is it past that point in time?
Did they set that's where before you had to have that suspension of disbelief?
Yes.
If you guys have things out there that you think are tragically underrated, we want to hear your opinions. If you think that some of the things that we mentioned were completely overrated, I want to hear that too. You're wrong, but I want to hear that too. Unless you were talking about one of Dave's, and then you were probably right.
Oh.
Meow. So hit us up at PopNerdery on the Twitters. Go to popnerdery.com, fire it up in the comment sections. Head to popnerdery/talkback. Let us talk back together there. And with that, we'll be right back.
Today's show is brought to you by Amazon. Go to popnerdery.com/Amazon and shop as you normally would to get the same Amazon you know and love while you support the show.
Like that toilet paper autofill option that you've signed up for in Amazon? Like that, Dave?
Yes, exactly like that, Brent. Pop Nerdery is part of the Amazon Associates program. What that means is that you get the same selection and same low prices of the Amazon you know and love, and if you're a Prime member, you get the same Prime 2-day shipping that you would normally get. And you get to support the show. That's it. It's pretty easy, Brent.
It does sound easy. Kind of like how to, open a pudding pop and just eat it.
So listeners, bookmark popnerdery.com/Amazon on your favorite browser today. And remember to click that shit every time you shop.
Okay, Dave. And welcome back. We are going to wrap this thing up with some recommendations here in the C segment. And so, Dave, I will throw to you here first. Give our listeners a good recommendation, buddy.
Absolutely. I am going to... the release of the Batman Superman trailer today spurred a discussion in our ongoing text thread, and I said, "Hey, this trailer is awesome," and Topher said, "Yeah, but fuck Superman." This is generally how our conversations go when we discuss this movie or discuss anything that has to do with the Justice League. I say,
or just anything.
What about this thing? And Toph says, "Yeah, but fuck Superman."
Fuck Superman and his stupid face.
So
it's like, I saw a really cute puppy today, and I'm like, yeah, but fuck Superman.
Exactly. So I wanted to recommend a couple of things to hopefully, so that we can better understand Superman, better appreciate Superman a little bit. Topher passed along an article to us last week from The Atlantic called "The Trouble with Superman." And if you are somebody who disliked Man of Steel or hasn't liked a Superman movie since Christopher Reeve in 1978, this is an article for you. It kind of goes through why DC has fucked up this character so badly. To put it bluntly, they keep trying to fix the guy when all you really need to do is kind of go back to the thing that made Superman great, which was he was unabashedly optimistic, unabashedly carefree, unabashedly excited and inspired for the future of, America and the people in our country and things like that. And honestly, in the cynical political landscape that we live in right now, that would be a breath of fresh air. If you read about a character like that was, so powerful so as that he always walked up to you with a smile and a hand outstretched for a handshake. Like that would be a breath of fresh air. Whereas, Superman now is not that. And it's because they've tried to Christopher Nolanize him, or they've tried to, make that character, depower him so that way he can face conflict or whatever. So one of the links from that article was to a proposal that was written by Grant Morrison and Mark Waid and Mark Millar about a thing that they were calling Superman 2000. And it was this proposal to bring the character back to what he was supposed to be, or what he started as. And that proposal was obviously never undertaken by DC Comics. They, doubled down on making the character grittier, doubled down on making the character,
worse.
Whatever they've done with Superman over the last
garbage.
But the place where you can find the most of that proposal in comics form is Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. So if you haven't read that, go read it. All-Star Superman and Superman for All Seasons are the only two trade paperbacks that really make me appreciate and love that character. So if you're looking for a little bit less fuck Superman than we normally give you here, and you want to appreciate the character before the movie comes out in March, those are some recommendations.
A fine recommendation.
How about you, Toph? What you got?
First, Superman's a dumbass. I just wanted to start there.
I mean, really, fuck that guy.
Right.
I always preferred Underdog myself.
Word. But in news that's not about Superman, I had to take 4 flights in 36 hours this week, so I had me a lot of reading time. So I knocked out the 10th anniversary edition of Neil Gaiman's American Gods.
Oh my.
Which is the author's preferred edition, which I always like it when we get to go back and see. Stephen King has done this a couple times now and re-release stuff in the way that he wished. Maybe he hadn't let editors make cuts or something.
Yeah.
So I had read American Gods when it came out, which has been 10 years ago probably. So it was kind of like revisiting the story anew. The quick sell on it is that basically everyone's culture, Africa, Asia, Europe, had their gods, their tribal gods, have ended up in America as immigrants and are just kind of like living under the radar.
That's a really, really good sell.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so it progresses from there. But it is, it was 500 pages on my iPad. This is a longer version, unsurprisingly, than the first version that was put out. Typically, things get edited to be shorter, not longer. But this is truly one of the compelling pieces of fiction, of fantasy, I guess it would be labeled as, that's probably come out in the last 10 years. So I highly recommend Neil Gaiman, American Gods. Just even as, if you're not super into fantasy, this is just kind of a brilliant thought piece on how cultural migration plays a part in society.
American Pie with gods.
I will say this. It was another 30-plus hour listen on Audible, so that's on my list
it's
well.
beefy, but it's so good.
And you do know that I think Starz is trying to develop
I've heard this.
An on-screen adaptation, right?
I'm very it is Starz. This is one of those books that, as we talked about, this has a great chance of being when my children make a podcast, when our children make a podcast in 20 years about shit they find underrated, they'll go back and do this Star's version of American Gods. It's just really never got the time of day because it would be really complex to do. I really love this book, but I almost kind of don't want to see it adapted.
Interesting.
There are a lot of moving pieces, and the way it's written kind of doesn't lend itself to a screen adaptation where things have got to be pretty linear and to the point. So
yeah,
I'll watch it with an open mind. But yeah, it's read the book and definitely get the 10th anniversary edition because it's gorgeous and it's long.
So your recommendation to me is just read a book again, right? Because that's words to live by for Brent.
Geez. Yes, I would. If you come to my house, I will give you more of my books in the hope that you will read them. I'll let you pick the books that you want to take home with you in the hope that
sounds nice. You friendly.
Brent, recommend me a thing that I don't have to read.
Okay.
Don't do it, Brent. Recommend him a book.
I think I'll just make that here in episode 13 an adamant stance. Brent will never recommend anything that any of you have to read.
Wow.
Nah, that's not true. That's not true. I like reading. I wish I did more of it. But what I did want to recommend to you, friends, is something that is not anything you have to read, unless you consider reading menus on a screen a thing. I watched a documentary on Netflix that I found just remarkably fun and funny, and I stumbled upon it. It is called The Search for General Tso. Have either of you seen this?
I've seen it on my Netflix recommendations because I watch a lot of documentaries on there, but I haven't watched it.
Give me the elevator pitch because I think I'm already in, but give it to me anyways.
It is not new, so I'm sure some of our listeners have already seen this, especially given the proclivity for Netflix users to watch documentaries at this point in time. But it was a documentary that came out in early 2014, and it's only a little over an hour long, but it asks the question, where does the dish General Tso's chicken come from? And does a pretty fun deep dive on that question and tries to figure out who General Tso was, why there's a dish made of chicken named after him, and how this played into Americana over the last 100 years. It does a nice job of talking about American history with Chinese immigrants and things like that. So it's just it's a fun exploration of a lot of different factors that all bounce around the most notorious takeout Chinese dish of General Tso's chicken. Yeah,
it's fantastic, and the reason that it took me a while to finally click is because it was after I watched Hero Dreams of Sushi, which is also something that I recommend highly. My recommended queue was updated with this, and I was like, that is racist as shit. Like, that's not even the same culture, B. Like, come on, don't do that. But then I clicked on it, and I was like, actually, this is pretty fascinating, and it's good, so I gave Amazon a pass for being like, all right, that's real racist. Like, you want something about sushi, so here's the thing about Chinese takeout? Like, come on, don't do that. But they're actually both really good.
And spoiler alert, it's not actually Chinese food. Oh.
Turns out some Americans like food.
Mind blown.
So yeah, that's my recommendation. That might be the only new thing that I'm doing, although I am doing some deep diving into the art of Star Wars The Force Awakens book,
so good.
Which is just beefy as all get out, but super dorky and fun. So I think unless we can think of any other random documentaries that we realized we've all seen at the same time that we need to talk about, I think we ought to just start shooting laser beams out of our fingers at each other. And listeners, we will see you at episode 14, gentlemen.
Finger guns.
Pew, 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 pew.
Let's do this before we all drop out of the chat.
Before the shit breaks again.
All right. Was that R2D2? R2, are you here?